my great pleasure to welcome you to the Let Us Dream 2020 Triennial International Virtual Conference on behalf of the entire International Conference Planning and Organizing team. They have been working tirelessly preparing for this event since January of this year. In fact, this conference is the outcome of a journey of more than 100 volunteers from different cities, countries and cultures crossing three different continents: Asia, Europe and North America. The path along this journey was an emergent one, not without its challenges, but one that was spawned shared commitment within our team to bring you the Let Us Dream conference, with its aspirational theme connecting local communities and service initiatives through global networking. Consequently, we are delighted to be able to provide you with a program consisting of an illustrious group of diverse, talented and dynamic speakers, panel discussion members and unsung heroes, all of whom have selflessly given of their time, expertise, experience and effort to bring this conference to you free of charge. However, first let us take a look at the genesis of this conference and how it has evolved into this year's International Virtual Conference. The Let Us Dream Conference was a vision of Dr. Father Lijo Thomas, who saw the need to create a forum for professionals, scholars, researchers and post-secondary students to connect and share experiences in implementing community improvement initiatives. Out of that vision, the Let Us Dream Conference was launched in 2017 at Louisiana Tech University in Ruston, Louisiana, USA. The overarching purpose of that conference was to provide opportunities for networking, sharing community improvement models, and developing the next generation of community leaders. The conference was a great success with approximately 200 people in audience. The Let Us Dream 2020 Triennial International Virtual Conference was a vision of empowering local communities, evolutionary outgrowth of that first locally sponsored conference in Louisiana. Since that first conference, annual Let Us Dream conferences have taken place at 5 universities in 3 different countries. We would like to take this opportunity to extend our deepest gratitude to these 5 host universities, where the Let Us Dream conference has already been established as an annual community event, and for supporting, promoting and participating in this year's conference planning. Also, we want to extend a sincere thank you to the numerous partner organizations who have assisted us in promoting and marketing this year's international conference, as well as providing their expertise in various planning committees. Before we begin the day with the opening address, I invite you to join me in observing a moment of silence to connect each other beyond our boundaries and pray for the healing and harmony in the world. I would like to now introduce our opening comment speaker, Dr. Harvey G. Stenger. Dr. Harvey G. Stenger was appointed President, Binghamton University in 2011. At Binghamton, his emphasis has been on strengthening academic programs, expanding research, and promoting economic development. Most recently, he has led the university's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. He has served in administrative roles at the university at Buffalo and Lehigh University. Dr. Stenger earned his PhD from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology with a research focus on synthetic liquid fuels.
Thank you, Ms. Rao, for that generous introduction, and thank you for letting me open Day 2 of the Let Us Dream International Conference. Over the course of this conference, more than 25,000 people will participate in learning how to build networks that are sustainable, that can help our communities. We were fortunate enough last year to host the conference live here at our College of Community and Public Affairs. And one of the benefits of hosting a conference, especially the live ones, are the participation of all the people that helped to organize it, from our first-year students to our most advanced faculty members, working together to create an itinerary, an agenda, and to host that conference was a great experience. I can imagine that what's happening right now to pull this one together virtually is just as challenging and perhaps in many ways more challenging. The model of education that we use at CCPA is that the research has to inform the education of our students by their internships and service learning in our local community that has a real and measurable impact. These internships provide a tremendous experience for our students to learn the impacts of service learning and community engagement on the entire world, and their experiences will help those partners in the future. The topic and theme of this conference has a lot to do with healthcare, and what better thing to be discussing right now as we're in the middle of this pandemic, but how we can support the healthcare systems around the world. Today's keynotes and panelists are going to discuss two critical issues: mental health, probably the number one concern right now in our nation and in the world, and secondly, the disparities of healthcare that people have access to, not just here, but everywhere in the world. Certainly, I want to thank the team leaders, panelists, moderators, and keynotes who are providing valuable information to our audience, and I know it was a lot of work to pull this together. Certainly, we want to thank Christ University in Bangalore, India. We want to thank the Catholic University of Applied Sciences in Germany, our own Binghamton University here in Binghamton, New York, Louisiana Tech University, as well as Grambling State University. Thank you so much for pulling this together and partnering in such a great way. And of course, I'd like to thank my friend, Father Lijo Thomas, who helped organize this conference, but also is the founder of the Let Us Dream organization. Thank you so much, Father. I hope to see you soon. And I want to thank the thousands of people who have watched and participated in this conference. While being virtual isn't always the best thing, it does have that added advantage of being able to reach so many people in such an efficient way. So thank you for being part of this conference as well. I hope you have a great conference. And here's your assignment. Listen carefully, take notes, and especially bring those ideas back to your organization and implement them. That's the goal of a successful conference. Thank you for joining me. I hope to see you in person soon.
I would like to now introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Philip McCallion, Professor and Director, School of Social Work, Temple University, Philadelphia, USA. Dr. McCallion's research interests fill an important niche in the field of social work, bridging scholarship on aging populations and those with intellectual disabilities such as Down syndrome. He is co-principal investigator of the Intellectual Disability Supplement to the Irish Longitudinal Study on Aging, a visiting professor at Trinity College Dublin, A. John A. Hartford Foundation Social Work Faculty Scholar and Mentor, and a member of the Steering Committee of the National Task Group on Intellectual Disabilities and Dementia. A renowned researcher since 1996, Dr. McCallion has received more than 30 million in research funding and has published more than 140 articles on interventions with older adults with chronic conditions, caregivers of frail elderly, persons with Alzheimer's disease, and persons with intellectual or development disabilities. As a mentor to junior researchers, he has served on 23 doctoral student committees, of which he has chaired 14 and supervised 40 doctoral and master's projects. Dr. McCallion's research began with randomized controlled trials of psychological interventions for people with dementia and their caregivers. His interests have extended to creating aging-prepared communities, evaluating non-pharmacological interventions, increasing the research reach of palliative care programs, and developing community-oriented projects to assist aging persons with intellectual disabilities. Within this work, Dr. McCallan emphasizes evidence-based interventions, collaboration with state and logical agencies, and community capacity building.
I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me to deliver this keynote on health. As you'll see in the first slide, I also wish to acknowledge Lisa Peretti, who is my colleague and partner in the work that I'm about to discuss. I always begin my consideration of this work by thinking about this issue of chronic illness. You'll see here on this slide to the left-hand side that the top 10 global causes for death. There are two on this list that are of particular interest to me in the work that I do. Heart disease and diabetes, particularly type 2 diabetes. These are non-communicable diseases. They are often lifelong in terms of their implications. And they require that there are things that I do as an individual, but there are ways in which the community can either support me or can make my life more difficult with those diseases. To the bottom right of this slide, you'll see much of my work is done in the United States. And so I look at that 6 in 10 adults in the US have at least one chronic disease, and 4 in 10 have 2 or more. And these are the leading causes of death and disability and the leading drivers of our annual healthcare costs. In the top right corner, I also want to talk about the linkage between physical health and mental health, which is one of the themes for the health section. People with other chronic medical conditions have a higher risk of depression, and people with depression are at higher risk for other medical conditions. And yet, even when other illness is present, depression is treatable, so that there's a complex interaction between physical and mental health that we really need to be concerned about and involved with. But when I think about these chronic conditions, I'm not a physician, but yet I think I have an important role to play in how we manage our chronic conditions. And I think that largely because of the social determinants of health, that we realize that so much of what happens from a health perspective is influenced by all the other things that go on around us in our lives. Our income, the physical environment, our employment situations, our levels of literacy are all important. But also there are things like healthy behaviors, there are things like access to health services. What about the levels of social support that are available to me? And what's the impact of gender in the midst of this? And how are we permitting gender to perhaps influence access, for example, to healthcare? And so I think that these are areas where, as individuals and as communities, there are things that we can do that will improve the management of chronic conditions for everyone. So this next slide has the chronic care model, which is something that really looks at the relationship between formal healthcare, between health systems and the community and the individual. And I draw your attention to that idea that there is an activated community that includes informed, activated patients, and that productive interactions and relationships involve their interaction with practice teams, with community partners, as well as the healthcare system. And that's how we arrive at good outcomes. So in this slide, I'm really interested in trying to understand the linkages, certainly between health determinants over the life course, but also health outcomes and its distribution in the populations that I work with, and then to look at the interaction that policies and other interventions at the individual and the population level can have on whether it's influencing determinants of health or influencing health outcomes. So as I work to develop and test and encourage interventions, I'm also greatly influenced by what we call the RE-AIM framework. RE-AIM is reach, effectiveness, adoption, implementation, and maintenance. Really causes us to sit back and think about, well, the evidence says that this intervention will have a great effect, so why doesn't it happen? Well, it doesn't happen perhaps because we're not reaching the right people. It doesn't happen because there aren't organizations who either are able to or who want to adopt it. It doesn't happen because we don't implement it in the right way. And often it doesn't happen because we have no mechanism for maintaining an intervention once we start it with great fanfare. So effectiveness is still important. That's the other component that I haven't addressed just yet. But let's think about sort of what does it mean to say that an intervention is effective? I think an intervention is effective when it becomes widespread in a community. I'm less interested in an intervention that only works for 3 or 4 people. I know it's important for them. There are other people who will do that work. That's not the work that I'm focused on. I'm focused upon interventions that will become widespread. And so with that in mind, I want to give an example from my work on building healthy communities of sort of the kind of work that's done and the kind of issues that we need to be thinking about. So this was the Healthy Hearts on the Hill Coalition. And it was a genuine coalition of a group of neighbors. And as a university, we were one of the neighbors. We were in a community called West Hill. And the community decided that they wanted a project that would mean that their neighbors would have the means and access to live heart-healthy lifestyles within the community and supported by the community. So we started out with some particular strengths, and each community is a little different. What we were fortunate to have was that we had developed some programs already, like the Neighborhood Health Advocate Program, that was serving a very, very small number of people. We had the faith communities in West Hill who were organized and who wanted to make a difference. We had a medical school that was nearby that had a small community service program and was willing to partner with us. We also had capacity for evidence-based health programming, and that had been demonstrated effective in individual behavior change, in which if the community was interested, we could very quickly stand up capacity to deliver those. But I think the most important thing that we had was that there was an interest among the agencies and individuals in the community to build a coalition. And there was an interest in doing this in a partnership way, in a participatory way. So when I think about traditional community change strategies, we tend to choose a unit for intervention. We're either largely focused on individual change or we're largely focused on community change. And yes, there's a lot of communication back and forth, but we're interested in understanding what that means for the individual or what it means for the community. In our coalition, we wanted to do something a little different. We were really interested in a community change strategy that really mobilized the individuals in the community. We worked on partnership building, we worked on co-creation of community-based programming, and we utilized evaluation to understand what the impact was at both the individual and the community levels simultaneously. Not one or the other, but both. So we then sort of really targeted in on sort of, well, where do we want the change? What is it that we're doing? What are we targeting? And we certainly looked at the system level, looking at the health providers, the structure of healthcare delivery. But we also looked at the role of faith and community-based organizations in promoting change. And we looked at the roles of individuals, of businesses, of the social networks that already existed in the community in promoting change at all levels. And then we looked at how well we were building community-driven solutions, a strong coalition where we're mobilizing the community, were we advocating and where should we advocate for systems change at the level of policy, regulation, and practice? It was a grassroots effort, certainly in support of individual behavior change, but something that was permeating the whole community. We looked at offering screening programs to build greater awareness of the chronic conditions. We looked at referral systems for primary care. Many times the most challenged communities have the least access to care. So we worked on sort of how do we ensure that that access is available. And we targeted our programming at the major risk factors, in this case for cardiovascular disease. We looked at nutrition, we looked at physical activity, we looked at helping people to stop smoking, and we looked at chronic disease self-management. I can tell you the best ways in the world to improve the care of your chronic condition, but I'm not going to be there every day, 24 hours a day, to help you with that. Really, I need to be working on how do I help you to manage these things for yourself. And so that's why we had such an emphasis on chronic disease self-management. But it was also about creating a community that would support all of this. So we focused in on increasing community awareness and education. The screening events were a good example. We looked at increasing access to healthy foods. We talk about food deserts as being a problem. Again, that's sort of people who have poor access to transportation, who have chronic conditions, often have the least access to healthy foods. And so how do we increase access in the community? And there were a variety of strategies, often very low cost and very effective, to bring healthy foods in, including helping people with understanding how to cook those healthy foods. And then we also looked at the issue of physical activity, and we realized that it was about increasing access, but it was also about creating safe physical activity spaces. And so as a community, we worked together on that. Then again, because our interest was in engaging at the community level, we wanted this to be something that everybody in the community was aware of. And that it was really transformational. So we organized something that we called the Biggest Winner. So it was a contest that we ran for several months, from April to December in the year that we ran it. It was modeled after a TV program in the United States called The Biggest Loser. And that's a program that really focuses upon helping people to lose weight. But the people in our neighborhood said, everybody thinks we're losers. We don't want to be called losers. There's nothing to be gained by being the biggest loser. And so we decided, okay, then we'll be the biggest winner. So we targeted the three major means of health-related behavioral change: nutrition, physical activity, and healthcare monitoring and management. And what we wanted to do, and what we succeeded in doing, was getting people to commit for a period of 4 months, that each month they would do activities that within those three areas, and that they would get points awarded for the activities that they did, and that people would commit to 4 months of these activities and to gaining at least 30 points each month. And if they did that, they'd be able to qualify then for a grand prize drawing. But at the same time, anyone in any month that turned in a scorecard would also be eligible for monthly prize drawings. We targeted 3 communities, West Hill and the 2 neighboring communities of Arbor Hill and the South End. These are very challenged communities. These are often the communities that are an entry point for immigrants to upstate New York. These are also communities where there are groups that have lived for a long time, and they are also communities where there's often a lot of transition in housing. It is a very ethnically diverse community. 20% of the population is over age 65. Almost everyone is low income. And about 35% were below what we call the federal poverty line. And these are communities that are health disparity areas, that there is a disconnect between the level of need and the services that are being provided to people. There's also issues in these communities of crime. There are large numbers of children who've been designated as at risk, and a lot of shut-in older adults who just didn't leave their homes very much. What really worked in this community was, and for the Biggest Winner contest, was that we engaged with organizations to be partners in this campaign. They became the places where people could go to get information, to register, to participate in activities. We ended up with 238 people who committed to the 4 months and got their 30 points each month. But we probably had about 1,500 people who participated overall in activities held at the portal sites. We were highly successful in engaging people who are most at risk. For example, among our contestants, the diabetes rate was 24%, which is about 3 times the rate in the rest of New York State. And about a third of our participants smoked, which is higher, again, than sort of the typical rate in New York State. So this was not about getting people who were ready to make change and who didn't have a lot of change to make to be healthy. We were really targeting people who really needed these programs. We used evidence-based programs such as the Chronic Disease Self-Management Program. We built a workforce in the community, largely of volunteers, largely of people just like the people who were participating in the classes. We developed I can't say we developed, a sense of community really developed. We started seeing teams being formed at the sites, for example, walking clubs, groups who would go together to shop at the supermarket, and just teams of people who would work together and support each other in participating in the activities. We looked to link our existing organizations within the community with new ones to the neighborhood, for example, a food co-op, an Asian arts group, all of which were really working to support each other and to support the people in the community. But I think the most important thing that the Healthy Hearts on the Hill Coalition achieved was that when this work all started, a lot of people said, well, nothing's going to happen. Look at all the problems that this community has. You're not going to make a difference. And what really changed over time, and what the Biggest Winner contest helped us to highlight, was that the coalition was delivering. There were things happening. There was excitement about the competition. When we had that final event where we awarded the grand prize, it was standing room only in the hall that we were using. And we were using the largest hall that we could find in the community because it was important to us that it be in the community, that people see that this was something that was happening here and that it could happen. Some of the other benefits included that there were lots of personal stories among the people who participated that reflected extraordinary gains that they made in improving their health. And again, this was not something on a TV program or on an advertisement in the newspaper. These were people who you knew, who over the 4 months you saw walking much more, you saw had clearly lost weight, who could talk about how their A1Cs had gone down. And the other thing that we hoped for, but were impressed by, was that we saw people stepping up and volunteering to help each other. It wasn't just a case of, I'm going to do the activities. I want to help some of my neighbors participate in the activities as well. But it was that expectation of community change that we think was sort of one of the most important things that we did achieve, and which sort of helped to then sustain the activities that we had started. So we learned a lot of things during the project. Community organizing, changing a community is a lot of hard work. There's a lot of meetings. There's a lot of people to be talked to. There's a lot of challenges that will present themselves, and sometimes it'll feel like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But yet it's still very rewarding work. It's important that you build strong relationships within the community, between the different organizations. That's how sustainability happens. It's not about somebody new coming in and doing something really great. It's about a partnership. And it's about people having the time to work with the group of people that they serve around these issues as well. It's about identifying champions and advocates for your program, and it's thinking about sustainability in every decision that you make. You don't do for people, you do things with people. That's how you create a legacy. That's how things will be carried on after you leave. Joel Barker said that vision without action is merely a dream. Action without vision just passes the time. And vision with action can change the world. So I'll add to that you have to start with a dream. And I think that that's what this conference is about. It's about stating the dream, stating the vision. The next step is action. And so I hope that in sort of what I presented, that you see how one community worked on action. And it's the combination of the dream or the vision with the action that can change the world. You start changing the world by changing one community at a time. And so I want to thank Father Thomas, and I want to thank the universities that have organized this conference. And I want to thank the organizing committee that invited me to present. And I hope in some small way I can help articulate the dreams and talk about how action with those dreams can change the world. Thank you.
Coming up, we have 3 parallel panel sessions relating to the field of health. In selecting the themes for each of the 3 panels, our team considered current issues and problems that today's health sector is facing. The worldwide COVID-19 pandemic has created increased challenges related to practices for good health, mental well-being, and the healthcare systems we have in countries across the world. We are extremely fortunate to have assembled an international group of health experts representing many countries for each of these panel discussion themes. First theme of our panel discussion is on mindfulness for health. Our moderator, Sophia J. Woodward, is from Nashville, Tennessee, US, a higher education professional, public school tutor, consultant, empowerment speaker, and image consultant. Joining her on this discussion is Mansoor Ahmed from India, Mr. Prasun Datta, Bangalore, India, Ms. Dr. Suja Isaac from Bangalore, India. Our second panel discussion is on healthcare disparities, and our moderator, Dr. Kevin Washington, is from Florida and Washington, D.C., an African-centered psychologist licensed in Florida and Washington, D.C. He is joined by Dr. Tiffany Bates from Louisiana Tech University, Mrs. Malati Murthy joins us from India, and Mrs. Shashikala from the field of psychology for 15 years of practice joins us from India. Our third panel discussion is on healthcare disparities. Our moderator for this session is Dr. Seema Rani from India, founder of Heal Your World, a globally certified counselor with a vast experience in marriage and family counseling. She is joined by Dr. Vishal Rao from HCG Cancer Center, Bangalore, India, Dr. Camillian Woodard from Grambling State University, LA, and Ms. Amudha Robert from Lancashire, UK. You will be introduced to each panel moderator and panel members when the 40-minute panel discussion of your choice begins momentarily.
Good morning, good day, good afternoon, wherever you find yourself in the world. It's a pleasure to be with you on this day. My name is Dr. Kevin Washington. I am the chair of sociology and psychology at Grambling State University in Louisiana in the United States of America. We are joined by 3 dynamic presenters, speakers healers, counselors, therapists who will share their insights into how we can be better and in our lives with an element of resilience, resisting anything that will destroy us internally and elevate us for perpetuity. I am joined by Ms. Murti, and she will share with us who she is and what she does. Also coming from Louisiana, Dr. Bates, and she will also share the work that she does as a counselor and a therapist and as an instructor and as a powerful practitioner in the world. Shashi will share about the work of being a practitioner and the healing work that she does. So we will begin with Dr. Bates. Introduction, who you are, and prepare audience to put in questions in the chat so that we can see your questions and we can field those, and the outstanding panelists can actually address those questions. Dr. Bates.
Thank you, Dr. Washington. Hi, my name is Dr. Tiffany Bates. I am an assistant professor at Louisiana Tech University in Ruston, Louisiana. I'm also a licensed professional counselor as a private practitioner. So I work with ages 1 to 101. But my focus is on women and girls and resilience. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Shashi.
Hi there. Thank you very much, Dr. Washington, to have given this opportunity to introduce myself. Well, my name is Shashi. I have been working as research and development consultant with relation to Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai. And my primary interests are literature, psychology, and gender studies. I've been working with various other intersectionalities. I've been doing restorative justice, gestalt, and theme-centered interaction as a humanistic psychoanalytical method. And my bent of mind is mostly working with group, and definitely, yes, women and group, and working about their strength and talking about everyday lives and trying to converge around those areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Gestalt and women and groups. We come into it. The next we have Malati Murthy.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Malati Murthy, working as a life skill trainer and a counselor for emotional needs in a reputed NGO. My profession focuses mainly on teenagers, women group, underprivileged, orphan, and homeless, and people like SHG members. I mainly focus on women group. Areas of these people will be with occasional training centers. Here we empower them and see to it they are trained and put them to jobs and leading with their financial independence. Handholding is taken care of and based on their requirement and skill. Mainly we empower them with all the types of training, and counseling is done as a part of it. And I concentrate mainly on women group as well as children ranging from higher secondary to working class. So in this pandemic situation, we see that there is an increased emotional situation for imbalance with the teenagers, which has created demand for online counseling also. So this is where I work, and this is about me. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. You actually lead me into the question. So I want to do I want you all to address this question. Outbreak, epidemic, and pandemic. An outbreak is something that happens in a certain region. An epidemic generally happens in a country, and a pandemic happens globally. We are told that we're in a pandemic at this time. The pandemic of coronavirus, SARS virus, actually impacting the health and well-being of people, but also impacting the economy of a variety of countries. What have been some of the major challenges that you all have seen occurring in your communities during this time, during this pandemic? We'll start, I guess, again with Dr. Bates, then we'll go to Shashi, and then Murthy.
Well, in my area, there are two major universities with Grambling State University and Louisiana Tech University. And one of the major things that I see is the impact on students. Some having to go home or not being able to connect um, uh, like they normally would. There are some incidents with depression, stress levels, anxiety is going up. So that's what I'm seeing. In terms of homes, there's some domestic violence cases. So there are many things in terms of not being able to connect, not being able to get out as often as we wish. But again, when we talk about resilience, we're talking about how we're processing that information. We'll talk about that a little later.
Okay. Shashi.
Yeah, well, I would like to focus my theme on two aspects thematically. I would like to, start with something like an umbrella theme. When I say an umbrella theme, because I looked at it as a collective, as a society, as a collective, what hit us, and what was a theme that I kind of want to focus on. I tried to understand the dichotomy between what happened to our world, as in home front and work front. This dichotomy of working from home, not able to recognize that there is work at home too. And this aspect of blurred boundaries. Suddenly we were all tied up to this unknown enemy, and the carrier being our own species. So there was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of questions unanswered. And I think we were all suddenly the home front that was supposed to be a sense of security became a kind of a prison, because we were all crammed into our physical spaces, not able to understand and grapple with the situation entirely. So that way, there are other things. When I talk about focus themes, I want to bring in aspects like things that have been more magnified now because of this situation. We understand the indifference of power in hierarchies that we suffered a lot, the increased state of depression, increased state of not able to use your mental faculties well, suffering domestic violence and things like that. And so I understood that as a community, that it was from an individual to the community and the community back to the individual. So this was some amount of a collective failure or a collective, I don't know how to put it, a way of not able to understand what is happening put together, though being, this intelligent, very intelligent, human beings that we are, but not able to grapple with it. So these are the things that I've been, thinking and focusing about, and writing academic articles and doing some research around gender violence and pandemic. Yes, doctor.
Thank you, thank you. That was so, it's rich. So you have to come back to the blurred boundaries, but also domestic violence and the group work. It's going to be powerful. Murthy, what have you
Yeah.
seen during this time? Yes.
Yeah, during this time, mainly what I've seen is women at home are very depressed, and because of the male domination. And I'm getting calls only regarding that, saying that we are at home and we are not able to manage about at home and things like that, and very depressed regarding this, and not able to go for online classes because I work with the underprivileged children and parents, and around me there are many people who are underprivileged, not able to take up online classes as they don't have internet facility, or they don't have their mobiles or laptops facilities or anything like that. So we are trying to mingle them in a class, put them, and trying to take up online sessions and give them resilience, how to cope up with the situation and things like that. And no socialization, suicidal tendencies are there with the students because there's no training going on, and few calls I'm getting for drugs who have been into, and they never know how to cope up with that because of all this. And work from home who are doing, it is too much of work now. The companies are pouring up too much of work because as they are from work from home, and companies are doing it, and no socializing mainly even in the company. Working at home, sitting alone in front of the computer, doing all day. It is stressful. So all these are there, and children not able to manage at home because always they are being present, like, and they are not able to play, or they are not able to meet their friends. All these problems have been there, and academically they don't know what to do. Online classes, they don't know how to operate, or parents also are not so well educated, so they are not also not able to look into the academics. All these are the issues which I am seeing around me. Thank you.
So what you present is this idea of a divide between a kind of a class system in the sense of who would have access to online services. If you don't have internet, you can't get the instructions. If you can't get the instructions, then you're left out of the conversation to, I guess, to interact, because that is our main modality for interaction. Even right now, rather than have a conference together, we're interacting via internet. And so it seems that you speak to this idea of a divide that would occur. Question, and then we want to make sure that we field questions from the participants. This is for anyone, this idea of access. You all mentioned depression, and you mentioned socialization. Those were three critical themes. When you suggest this notion of depression, how is that related to what does culture and gender have to do with the types of elements of depression that you are experiencing? Dr. Bates, we'll start with you.
Okay. In my culture, basically we talk to each other, family members, or we go to the church as our safe haven. However, all of those factors have now been impacted. So we are left with our own thoughts, right? And so trying to communicate the importance of counseling, even if it's like this, but being able to talk to someone and normalize those feelings that they're having, that they're not alone. There is something that they can do. And we talk about self-care a lot. That's something that we have to do regularly in order to maintain our sanity right now. We can't control the factors that are going on, such as the pandemic. However, we can control ourselves and our reactions to it. So basically, just having that understanding, or not being limited by some things that maybe we've been taught in our culture, but actually reaching out for help, I think is very important during this time. And although we can stay physically distanced, but still having that connectivity in terms of being social and still building community is important for our mental well-being.
So really, I mean, how human is it, right, to not interact and communicate? Because that is what we do as humans. We interact, we communicate. Students want to come back to college campuses to socialize, and we're saying, no, you can't do that. I think that's an oxymoron. And humans do indeed interact, and that is how we become energized in general, is from connections with other people. And so you mentioned the idea of the Black church, and people don't have those connections, and that may influence spiritual connections. And so that could lead to feelings of depression and sadness. There's a question here, Shashi. I think that you can feel this one better from the beginning, and then we'll go to Murthy. Is that, in your opinion, how has the pandemic affected underprivileged women specifically, and then the idea of domestic violence within that? So, Shashi.
Thank you very much. Apparently, I would call it more than a coincidence, because I was actually prepping my mind to talk about it. So just to set a context regarding that, keeping pandemic in mind and to depart from this concept of blurred boundaries, like I started talking to you about, I'm just trying to understand and set a context, talking about this aspect of who earns what money, what kind of power. There's a power distribution happening between the members of the family. Who earns what kind of money? What is the gender that person belongs to? The kind of children, the number of children we have in the house. Because one has to eventually understand that we had too much of each other's faces, too much of each other in a given, in an intimate space that we have. That's exactly why I use the word blurred boundaries, because we are not just human beings per se that way. We are also human beings with voices in our head, in our socialization, in our growing years. And therefore, this aspect of just a biomedical view of, mental health doesn't suffice. One needs to understand the sociological model of mental health. And this is an important time to address this right now, because if one has to define it in simple terms, mental health is about optimum utilization of your cognitive, relative, and your other intellectual capabilities, and being able to relate with another individual, and therefore make meaning in life. So because of pandemic, all of this has been, has been acting like a challenge for us, and not able to communicate with each other. And the aspect that the physical space that we've lived in, and therefore a lot of women, domestic workers that I work with, who belong to the informal sector, have lost their work. They've been looked down upon, and a lot of women who were contributing subsistence as second income to the family have lost their jobs. So this aspect of losing power as a bread earner has been gone. So who's important, who has more power, who makes money? So all of these questions have just come out of somewhere and start staring into your eyes, and you just start questioning yourself about your role, and who is this person you've been, that you are, and now who have you become?
That's a powerful piece about being and becoming, right? Because I talk about this idea of, we say we're humans being, and I always say that we're humans becoming. We're humans becoming better today than we were yesterday, and twice as good on tomorrow. So these experiences facilitate us becoming something distinct. And so it is this idea of reinventing ourselves. Murti, what have you seen with domestic violence and women, and how can we begin to address some of those challenges?
Yeah. When I look into this domestic violence, women are being very treated very harshfully. Like husbands are not as lost jobs, and they are treating their wives, and they are not able to get jobs, and it's very emotionally, it's very disturbing for each and everyone in the family. Even the child is being disturbed, as they used to get free food from the schools. Now it's not happening, and in the shelter homes also they are not able to come and manage the food or the daily needs whatever they need. It's not happening, and within the house they have to do it. And the as Shashi said, the breadwinner is not there, he's not able to earn anything. All that has been showed on the children and the wife, and the wife is really suffering a lot, women is suffering a lot here. And the communication in the family is not that much as earlier it used to be, because a lot of quarrel is there between the family members due to this, but they are not able to cope up with the situation. If this goes in long run, it will I don't know what to say, how they are going to cope up with. So it and the financially how they used to uh, take up things earlier, it's not been maintained, because they had so many commitments earlier. When they had the job, they had so many commitments, but now all of a sudden when they have lost all this, so they are not able to fulfill all the commitments which they have. So it's a great trouble. We all are in a great trouble now. That's the
There
thing.
are, you mentioned about activities doing. I think that another thing that has happened is that we spend a lot of time running and doing and not being. And I think this has forced us to think about how to be. And by that, I'm suggesting that people have had to figure out how to be together. I think that even in households,
Yeah.
we take children, we cook, but now we don't have all of those activities, those
Yeah.
streams, and now we have to figure out, how do I be with you and be with myself and be at peace in this, and it's very challenging. There's some questions, statements that were made about conviction. I want to come back to those as a part of our closing, but there's one question here about, have you all seen uh, an increase in caregiver strain due to the lack of support from schools and other therapists? And do you have any ideas for parents? So, Dr. Bates, I see you smiling on that one, so we'll start with you.
Absolutely. Caregiver burnout. It is happening on so many levels right now. You mentioned something, and it is important that we do reflection now, um, especially for those of us who are used to not asking for help. Well, now is the time that you may have to say, listen, I'm drowning. I need help. I have all of these responsibilities and I'm having a hard time balancing, right? And so you're drowning while you're trying to help everybody else and make sure everything is okay. And especially with yourself, having to reflect. So reaching out, communicating, saying that, hey, it's okay. It's all about our self concept and our self control, right? And being able to communicate, very important. So while we are doing that, just finding that happy balance, even if it's so much as going outside, just in your own area, in your backyard, taking in nature, taking a breather, unplugging from social media for a moment. Sometimes people think that's the way I can be connected, but you find yourself even more depressed after being on social media. So sometimes you need to unplug, gather a moment for yourself, and then reconnect. Again, it's about self concept and knowing how to communicate what your needs are.
You know, a part of ourselves is tied in with others. If we talk about a cultural construct of identity, that I have value and worth because there are others. I want to fill this out to everyone about the interventions, and then we're going to go into the next steps. So now we're talking about interventions, and we're going to close out with where you are, Dr. Bates, which is the steps of what we can do. That is that we've all been trained or exposed to therapeutic models that teach us about how to interact with other people. My question is, do you all feel that the models that we have received are culturally appropriate or responsive to diverse populations in general? And are they very helpful for what we find ourselves in now in these conditions of that have been exacerbated by class and race and other things? So we'll start with you, Shashi, because you have a great deal of training in Gestalt and TCI and others. What do you think about that? Do you think our training has prepared us to deal with diverse populations and for moments like this?
Well, Dr. Washington, I would like to bring to your notice, all of our notice, that we have made. I mean, we've been a part of history now. Never before in the humankind that we know something of something like this. Therefore, if this has never happened, we need to find ways that we have never done. So we need to think around, we need to invent the wheel for ourselves now and try and understand that we belong to different cultures and different needs that one needs to address. And most importantly, as an academic, as a researcher, I would like to propagate that one has to now sit down and build and construct evidence-based knowledge, systems. One has to understand that mental health per se right now has received a lot of attention, focus, because it always went out of radar. Mental health always went out of radar because there was so much stigma, especially in this part of the world. I could vouch for the stigma that was associated, to this part of the world, that we understand about everything is about collective, the culture that we belong to. It's about us. Somewhere down the line, the me has lost myself in the us, and this aspect of wanting to perform and be this and be that. I don't know where I belong. So I think we need to now take these things seriously as a policy. We need to make policy stage interventions. I also think we must promote more action research, initiatives, especially with mental health awareness. And we need to build a different model put together. And I would like to recommend that we work more on the sociological model, not the biological. I don't know if I'm sounding very aggressive on that, but I'm trying to understand that we need to disseminate useful knowledge that we have built and make use of them, use the expertise of stakeholders, bring everything together and start rewiring our systems and give more importance to the biography, the experiential aspect of human beings per se. Because I work with this group method called theme-centered interaction, which mostly talks about I, me, and it. The I is me, and the us is part of the different spaces I am. I'm a daughter. I'm a worker. I'm a wife. I'm a friend. I'm an acquaintance. I'm a therapist. So I have so many roles to deal, and I have to other things to do in my workplace, and also remember that there is a biography that I carry, and I can never separate myself from my workplace, myself from my home space. So when there is this aspect of biography not being given importance in a culture like ours, one needs to work around that. I mean, I don't know if I'm
No, that was powerful, but I mean, you sent me thinking. That is because TCI developed out of the, I think it was Khan who talked about how do individuals who've been impacted by I think the Jewish Holocaust redefine or reassess their lives. And so it seems to be a cultural practice, a phenomenon. And I think that what you speak to is the necessity for developing that type of a model in this condition, this state, grounded by cultural reality, cultural thoughts, and ideas. We want to move and want to shift into some of the things that we can do for resilience. But I don't want to cut off Murthy. You were going to say something, so go ahead, Murthy. You had a thought.
Yeah. So here, what we actually look into it is the faith and God. Spirituality again plays a major role. So faith and God is very important. Hope, we have to look into it, and love within the family has to be taken care. We can guide them in the community level, as the awareness has to be given to the community people, and fundamentally it has to be taken care, like mental health care. How physical care is very important, as we all are taking care, but even the mental health is also very important for us. So even that awareness has to be given and the community level, and it's a very big pandemic situation, and it's a very big challenge for counselors or anyone here, which plays a very important role for all of us to boost each and every individual to for any kind of people whom we are working with. So in our area, we can just look into those people and we can try to boost them up and see what better we can do. That's the major mistake.
Very good. So here's a shift. The shift is now you put us right there, Murthy. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
The shift is now, what do we do? How do we apply a culturally responsive intervention? What do we do as therapists? And what do we tell people who are going through these challenges now? How do we do the work to allow people to heal and repair? And I think the first step comes from gaining a sense of understanding of where we find ourselves. I think too often we find ourselves resisting and fighting something that is inevitable. It's kind of like when one is caught up in a riptide, so to speak, in the ocean. You can't fight the ocean. You have to go with the tide for a moment to be able to come out of it. And too often we want things to look a certain way because we're used to them being that way. But what I'm finding is that diverse populations that have had the practice of having to go without are finding other ways of coping that other populations are not coping in the same way because they want to do what they want to do. So here's a thought question. Cultural responsive. What do you give people? Dr. Bates, you talked about going outside. What do you tell people, and how do you begin to help us make sense of everything that's happening that doesn't make any sense to us?
Very good. Thank you. Acknowledging what is, right? And then centering about what can I do about it, okay? First, we know what's going on and what can we do? And so I think part of it is acknowledging the situation and then prioritizing our mental health. When we talk about theories, I think recognizing narrative therapy and telling our stories, that connectivity that we talked about earlier, sharing our stories and what we are experiencing and not having the shame attached to it. Someone talked earlier about losing jobs. Sometimes there's shame in not being able to provide. So telling our stories, connecting that way, and trying to connect to resources, acknowledging what's going on, where do I go from here, talking about it, prioritizing our mental health. And there is a way, when I talked about nature earlier, just going outside, getting that vitamin D, just centering yourself and having your own thoughts, reflecting. Where can I go from here? Just, I think that's a good start.
You all mentioned this idea of what I would say that people roam free in their heads with no adult supervision. That is that people begin to get caught in their own thoughts. So you said go outside and to be. I think that there's something else that would have to go along with that, which would be some refocusing of attention. But I love this idea of the narrative. How do we tell? How do we write a rescript our narrative and the stories that we begin to tell, because we have these now new outcomes that we can write into the narrative. And I think the beautiful thing about narrative work is that it tells us that the book has not been completed. Too often we can consider our lives to be over, but we're always authoring certain sections that we can now come up with new outcomes. Shashi, the idea of reinventing yourself, making yourself better, but also remaining convicted to a social justice agenda is a part of the work that you do. What do you share with people that will help them to become better in these moments?
Doctor, I'm just thinking about as individuals, we are invariably, we belong to one group or the other. We are part of a family, we're part of a workplace, we're part of a group of friends, we're part of acquaintances, we're part of a community, religion, race, and so many other things. So I would like to think that by not romanticizing this very aspect of resilience being defined in the premises of being perfect, having it all, having it all in control, having it all converged in one space, and being something that I cannot imagine to be. So I feel one needs to understand this individual responsibility that things will fall apart.
Yes.
There is going to be a definition of a new normal. Let it all fall. But again, believing in rising again, I will start over, all over again. I will connect to my group, whether it is my family or my community or my religion or my church, or my NGO. So just coming back to the community that way, trying to understand that there's a collective wisdom that we all share. When I work in Gestalt and dream and fantasy, I work with women, my other colleagues in my office space, it's very interesting to understand how authentically we are all in the same boat. It's truly existential that we all suffer, and we're not able to tell each other this and then rationalize that it's okay. We can't have it all together. And then, like Dr. Bates says, that let us all now pull ourselves together and rewire, rescript, work around those concepts and go back to our community, society, our religious texts, our practices, and reparent ourselves. Yeah, and not really given, and feel that it's all falling apart. I say, let it fall apart. It's all right. Have the resilience to come back. We'll do it again. We'll put it all together again. That is what I feel.
Wow. Okay. Rescript. Let it
Yes.
fall apart and know that it can all come back together again, because it has done it in the past, right? This is just a sequel, right? We've been through this before. Humans have gone through these things before. Powerful. And I see you smiling, so you know that means something to you on multiple levels right now. Okay. So
It's just impromptu. I think it just came from my biography. So I don't
mhm.
know. It's nice. It's a beautiful platform for me just to connect with you. And it feels good in my body, actually. I'm a very,
Yes.
very body person. So it gives me a good feeling. So I just smile.
And
Thank you.
and that is again a part of the healing process, is that as we engage in the work, right, we even find our own healing moments. And so just to be able to know that there is a divine download that comes into us, and it comes through us, and then it's like, did I say that? And so that's called what I call the divine download. It just comes, and that's when we know we're in the right moment. Murti, you there's a question about um, domestic violence. I know that Shashi, you deal with this as well. But Murti, the idea of domestic violence and victims and victimization. Is there anything that you could share with us about uh, women, children, and domestic violence, and how can they express themselves in this moment of the pandemic to get help and assistance?
Okay. See, in this situation, I would like to say upon when I is replaced with we, illness becomes wellness. So it is quoted by Shannon, which says that only one people working does not really impact in the community. It is a time that we all together work and see to it that in the community it's going to work around and people will recover very soon, and we all will recover very soon. So in this resilience, it's like a superpower. We need to activate it, and we need to take up on, and we need to see that when people are suffering and where they are in depression or anxiety or in some other issues, we need to try to cope up with that situation, and we need to encourage them and see to it. For example, I can say that when I had a call recently, a mother of 5 years old was really in a very bad situation. Like her husband had no job, and the child was diagnosed with diabetes. And the mother was really taken back, and she didn't know what to do. And when she took up our training, uh, we just encouraged her to take up the training and see to it that she got a job. And in this time I could see that I thought it will take still more time for her to recover. But as I went through the counseling and did her, what I felt was the time, the duration which I thought was really too much for her. She built up her resilience and she coped up with the situation because she wanted the child to take care of, and her medications, everything had to be taken care of. So the situation will teach us so many lessons for us. And now she's doing good, and she's able to uh, take up the situation and handle the situation better as earlier. When that is how we need to learn how to build up our resilience. That is what I think. So
Washington, if I
working together played a major role in this, and even I learned that resilience is something very important which we need to focus in the time now.
When the I becomes the we, powerful,
Yeah.
and how we work together. The Shashi, and then
Yeah,
we're going to do a
Washington,
closeout.
I'm sorry.
Mhm.
I thought she was finished. I just feel that looking at an anthropological and sociological
Mhm.
theoretical framework just to understand domestic violence, just to place it in context, I just feel that there is a lot of history to it. This aspect of who controls the economic resources, who has the money, who makes the everyday decisions, who runs the property, who pays away the bill. all of these all of this plays a lot of there's a lot of power play happening in domestic spaces, because of which there is somebody who is a have, and there is somebody who's not who's a have not, but living in a very intimate space. So just to understand that, I don't think all of the burden of has to fall on the women, to educate herself and to work around that and feel that this love's labor of just wanting. wanting to fix everything all the time. This is a burden on women. That's what from where I come, from a women's studies point of view, it is always a burden of women. This reproductive labor that she used to do, this loves labor, which is not even recognized. That's why I said this blurring boundaries that we have, work from home, but the whole world forgot women works at home. And this is not even recognized as work. This kind of work is not even recognized in our constitution. So this aspect of this entire burden only on one gender, and it is only her responsibility to take it up. I think that is a little lopsided, an argument. I think we have, as stakeholders, we have our responsibilities to pull strings and do something about it. That's what
Indeed. The various challenges, right? The gender discourse, and some of that does have cultural connotations to it, and so that's powerful. Anyway, I mean, we could just go on. This is really good. There's a question here, statement, and this will be your closing statement or your thoughts. So tied together, Dr. Bates. This is that student anxiety and stress has not really been discussed much here, and so can you speak to that?
Absolutely. Just last night, I had a session well past 9 o'clock, talking to a student, encouraging them to connect with their professors. They were closing themselves off and putting up a wall and putting everybody out. And I said to him, as I do to several students, you have to communicate as to what is going on. There are counseling centers on campus, and maybe you can't go there physically, but you need to speak to someone there and let them know what you're going through, the struggles. Sometimes students don't want to do their assignments, and so they fall behind. So that part about being able to communicate what's going on and not making assumptions, going back to what we said about meaning making, it's very important to control what you can and communicate when you say, hey, I need help. Very important, because there are several students that currently experiencing anxiety and depression. And we as professors, we won't know that unless they communicate, and we will, do what we can to help them through this tough moment.
Student stress is on multiple areas, right? So you mentioned calling out for help, not being able to go to the counseling centers, having a workload that they have not necessarily had before. In school, right? The idea of, I think Murthy mentioned online conversation. Many students have never taken online classes. Many instructors are just learning to instruct online, right? And so there is that anxiety and tension that mounts when certain things are loading, uploading, or not loading, or downloading, and all kind of stuff is happening. And so there's a miscommunication that happens there. And I had several students get frustrated with that. And also expectations. How do you communicate? Because as you all know, that no matter what language you speak, there are things that can get lost in textlation. That's what I call it, right? So we can say something in text one way or in writing one way, but it's interpreted another way based on where people are at that time. And so things can get lost in textlation. So that can add to the anxiety on top of not being able to do the normal things that one would do at this time. For example, in the fall in the United States, it's football season. Individuals, I guess other people don't call our thing football, which is fine because it's not really much foot in the ball, but so that's another conversation. But the idea here is that people interact and socialize around these events, and so that's been dysregulated. And then on top of that, not being able to communicate and having to communicate perpetually with the mask on. So all of these things have caused major shifts that could help people to feel a level of anxiety, depression, sadness because of not being able to connect. And I think that you all have offered us some suggestions and thoughts around how do we recalibrate, how do we relook, how do we rethink who we are and how we function, and how to use this moment as a moment to move forward. And I like what you said, Sashi, about letting things fall apart. And that's okay for things to fall apart. We don't have to have everything always together, but knowing that they do come back together again, and many times they come back together better than they were before. There are some things that have to be torn apart to be made better. There were things that happened, as you experienced with Dr. Bates, during Hurricane Katrina, where New Orleans was disrupted. But in that disruption, we became more aware of the economic disparities that exist within the state, but also we find that there are other disparities that exist across this world of populations. And so sometimes letting it fall apart to break status quo so that we can begin to address the issues that surround us. We become better at communication when we learn how to use the computer better to communicate. We become better communicators when we begin to examine the phenomena of how we have become dysregulated. We become better at healthcare and better at law and better in all aspects of life when things can fall apart. Chinua Achebe has a book called When Things Fall Apart, very powerful author. So I think that you all have hit some powerful points here about resilience, knowing that it is not a destination, it's a process. I think that that's what you all spoke to. Someone asked a question about how can we talk about strong conviction within students or young people because they don't seem to have it. I think that, Shasha, you mentioned something that says that if they don't have it, they're about to learn how to have it in this moment because things are happening around us. You all mentioned reinvent yourself. And I use that word about reinvent or rescript, restructure. How do you become a better person? How do you become anew? I think this is a moment to become anew, to reassess all relationships, right? No matter where we find ourselves, just reassessing that to become a better self. Myrta, you mentioned faith, hope, and love. And so we know the power of faith, the belief in something that is not there, but knowing that it will be there, that it can be there. But we know that without faith, it's impossible to do anything. The idea of hope, that if you have someone who is hopeless, you have someone that is in despair. So we talk about maintaining hope, and then the idea of love and love on multiple levels. And with love, all things are possible because we know that when we feel love and that we are in love and when we are in a space of love, it allows us to be able to pick ourselves up and to move forward. So I think this idea of resilience as a moment of transformation to transcend has been explicated very clearly. And I thank you all for sharing, taking our time to engage everyone, because I have been inspired. I've got a divine download on this day, and that leads to the unlimited upload to be able to do the unthinkable. So thank you all so much. And we will wrap up here. You all fantastic. I feel much better. I hope others feel better as well as a result of hearing this, and that we have some marching orders. That is to be better, to do better, to know that we are better and we will be even better on tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wishing you well.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to our Unsung Heroes celebration. Likely, most will agree that common characteristics of heroes, including admirable qualities such as bravery, courage, determination, moral integrity, selflessness, empathy, and servant leadership, just to name a few. Oftentimes, a hero is admired and recognized for great and brave acts. Literature is replete with examples of many kinds of heroes, such as the mythological Greek hero Hercules, known for his strength and courage, and the non-fictional hero Florence Nightingale, known for her leadership and compassion and care for suffering patients. And who among us has not heard of fictional heroes such as Superman and Wonder Woman, both of whom exhibit superhuman strength and strong moral character? Yes, we have many examples of heroes across cultures. But what does it mean to be an unsung hero? As heroes, oftentimes they exhibit moral courage, determination, selflessness, empathy, and servant leadership qualities, similar to those of their more celebrated counterparts. However, unsung heroes typically go undetected in their communities. they fly beneath the radar. Unsung heroes are people who do extraordinary things for others without seeking or anticipating credit, reward, or recognition. The Let Us Dream Conference is grounded in the value of volunteerism, specifically performing selfless acts of service, of community improvement and empowerment. Or, as Archbishop Desmond Tutu would say, so simply say, doing little bits of good. Therefore, it seems highly relevant that we have chosen to honor individuals who reflect this value in their everyday lives without expecting acknowledgement of what they do, for they do it from their heart. According to the late great American poet Maya Angelou, if you find it in your heart to care for somebody else, you will have succeeded. It is this measure of success that so clearly aligns with the values that underpin this conference, and it is why we are profoundly grateful for the opportunity to have you join us this year in the celebration of our unsung heroes.
In the year, I think 1999 or 2000, decided to jump into the fray and start community work even though we had no experience. We decided to come and settle down in Bangalore, and that's how we registered this trust called Swabhiman. Swabhiman today, in the last 18 to 19, 20 years of its existence, we started off by adopting 15 girl children who are now all grown up and very well settled in life. Then we started working with schools where we taught English initially. We went on to hire teachers on our payroll. Then we started charity clinics. We run a fairly large interest-free microfinance activity. We run a very large educational scholarship. There are youth and women empowerment programs that we run. There are youth soft skill training programs that we give. We also run a fairly large food distribution program that supports about 2,000 people almost every single day, and run a grocery activity which delivers 1,000 families in that community groceries every month. So all this happened one by one, and that we kept addressing the needs in the community. The slum that we work with, which is the Rajendranagar slum, is one of the largest in Bangalore. And as we felt the need for various things at different points in time, we started the programs one after the other. And thank God that all these programs are flourishing and doing exceptionally well. Swabhiman, for a good number of its community activities, depends largely on the youth volunteers from the community. A majority of them are semi-literate or illiterate youth in the community who drive a bulk of our programs. So many years ago, about 10 years ago, we were doing a few things in the community like working with schools, having a couple of our clinics, and a small set of activities. One evening at about 7 o'clock, when I had finished my work and I was walking back through the slum with a set of volunteers, one young man by name Khader, an exceptionally poor boy himself with a couple of children, and was struggling to make his two ends meet, I saw him holding a couple of food packets in his hand. Now, this was a time that we were struggling to serve 50 meals in that community. We used to cook food ourselves because we were realizing that there was some amount of people who were going hungry there. So when I saw the food packets in his hand and I asked him as to Khader, what is this food packet? He told me that, sir, for the last couple of years, every day when I cook food at home or my wife cooks food at home, she lets me pack 2 meals and I deliver it to a couple of destitute women who sleep under a staircase in a building. And I was very intrigued. Khader, who himself is very poor and just about manages to give his children 2 square meals, how could he do this? So when I went along and met these women, and they were absolutely destitute and they were waiting for Khader's hot meals. After he served the meals, I asked Khader, I said, when you yourself are making it so difficult for your family to, make 2 ends meet, how do you serve food to others? His answer is what changed a lot of our activities and my life forever in that community. He told me, sir, if my parents were alive, would I not have given them 2 meals every day? So I now believe that whenever my wife cooks, these 2 additional meals are meant for my parents, and those are the 2 meals that I pack and deliver these destitute women. That day I realized that when Khader can manage to serve 2 people in the community every single day on his own, can I not drive a program to feed a large number of hungry people in the community, mostly senior citizens, widowed women with little children, so on and so forth. So a program that started 10 years ago with 50 meals serves almost 2,500 meals every single day. This is one such life-changing experience, though I can narrate very many more, but this is one of those very, very touching ones. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ernest Banda. I do work with the Malawi Children's Mission Organization, which is a local non-profit organization working with orphaned as well as vulnerable children. I would like to share with you some information relating to the program that I'm working with. I do work as a coordinator for the Young Women's Initiative program. But before I tell you a lot on the Young Women's Initiative, I would like to take this time to appreciate those who are involved in choosing members to take part in the upcoming Let Us Dream International Conference. I felt honored to be recognized as one of the people that are doing work that is impacting the community. Thank you very much. Now coming to the Young Women's Initiative program, this is an initiative that was put in place in 2015 by the Malawi Children's Mission Organization. There were a number of reasons why this initiative came into existence. Previously, the organization has been experiencing huge numbers of girls dropping out of the system due to teen pregnancies as well as early marriages. So as a way of trying to keep the girls in school, the initiative came into place. We have 45 girls currently in the program, and their ages range from 12 to 22. We hold 2 meetings each week, but we also hold special meetings 1 Saturday a month. Our weekly meetings are based much on teaching the girls topics related to their education, health, as well as life skills. Whilst the Saturday meetings are much focused on mentoring the girls. During these Saturday meetings, we do invite ladies as guest speakers, especially those ladies who have gone through the similar kind of backgrounds as our girls, but have made it in life. We want them to motivate our girls that no matter what the circumstances are, they are still standing a chance of becoming independent in the future if they work hard on their education. So initially, that is the main reason why this initiative came into place. We just want our girls to grow into independent but also responsible members of the society. So working with these girls just reminded me of where I'm coming from. I saw myself in them, and I was really happy to work with them, to encourage them, to motivate them, because I could see that they are standing a better chance of becoming better people in the future, because they are belonging to an organization, yet I did not have that chance. So to me, I felt like if they are just given encouragement, if they are mentored, if they are exposed, believe you me, they have each and every chance of becoming better people in their societies. So yeah, after graduating in 2017, I was given a chance to continue working with these girls as a coordinator for the Young Women's Initiative Program. I'm happy to be working with these girls, and I enjoy spending time with them and doing whatsoever we're doing with them. I have huge expectations on them. I believe that they will be notable people, great people in the coming years. People graduating from the Young Women's Initiative Program, becoming great in the society, and also taking the responsibility to mentor some other girls that are coming, be it in the organization or maybe in different areas in Malawi.
Renuka Jagannath is a computer engineer who limits herself in the field of technology and pursues her interest in social work. Because of this, she became a voice to the voiceless and a brainchild of UDID NGO, which aims to explore the world and provide a bunch of love, care, and support. UDID, Youth Undertaking Developed India Dream, is a non-governmental organization founded in 2018 in Bangalore. It comprises highly disciplined and well-qualified like-minded people who have been a leading change maker in creating awareness in education, governmental policies, cleanliness program, supporting food relief. It has targeted setting up camps, building community halls, bus stands, and necessary facilities in India's rural region. Recently, it met tremendous attainment while conducting a quiz competition aiming to raise a considerable amount of money for serving the needy in COVID-19. These days, it has been doing awareness programs like mental health, coloring, painting, interviewing with doctors going virtual. Finally, it believes in giving back the portion of what we have earned. As its main motto is, let the change flow. Chandni Ravi is the Deputy Director at Ernakulam Medical Center, a family-run multi-specialty hospital in Kochi. She graduated in Electronics and Communication from Cochin University. 2017, July 17th, her life took a spin. While she was doing her PhD, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. She was determined to keep her husband and her 2 little children together, and for this, she had to take care of herself mentally, physically, and spiritually. The day she was declared cancer-free, she started Pink Sari Sisters, an online support group for Indian women diagnosed with cancer. Group's primary goal was to keep families together. She would go to towns' remote parts to teach children. Most kids are from challenged backgrounds, drugs, broken families, and low socio-economic backgrounds. She helped sell the produce of one orphanage and distribute in a needy orphanage elsewhere, supporting cancer patients and their carers. Sustainable Menstruation Care Collective, SMKC, brings together educators, practitioners, activists, youth, and organizations to open up missing dialogues on menstrual rights and equality. They run online and offline outreach with their members to offer mentorship to young educators, collaborate for policy advocacy, and facilitate knowledge sharing in menstrual health care and sustainability practices. Their collective remains committed to holding open, safe, and informal spaces for women, girls, trans and intersex persons, for informed exploration of menstruation beyond taboo and with reason, as well as engage non-menstruating allies for creating support systems. Mr. Vinod Kumar is an academician by profession, works as an assistant professor at a university. He teaches accounts and finance. He is the founder of the Good Quest Foundation, a registered non-profit charitable trust working for the empowerment of underprivileged and marginalized society, with the vision to seek the lost and empower them. Vinod and his small team of enthusiasts are determined to get a tangible change in the derived classes' lives. He works among the slum dwellers, juveniles in remand homes and young prisoners, transgender people, refugees, orphans, needy, and tribals. One of the core areas where Vinod is focusing on is disaster and pandemic relief work. Since the outbreak of COVID-19, Vinod's contribution to the society in providing relief amidst the distress is extraordinary.
I would like to now introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Devi Prasad Shetty, Chairman Narayana Hrudayalaya, Bangalore, Karnataka. A cardiac surgeon of repute and a successful entrepreneur, Dr. Shetty is a highly respected luminary for his ingenious ideas for reforms in healthcare sector. His visionary leadership to make quality healthcare affordable for all has drawn global recognition. Treading the path of economics of scale to bring down the cost of healthcare delivery, Narayana Hrudayalaya has been an interesting case study for the likes of Harvard University and the Wall Street Journal. In association with the government of Karnataka, Dr. Shetty pioneered Yashaswini, a very inexpensive micro-health insurance scheme benefiting more than 3.5 million rural poor. Dr. Shetty is the current chairman, Board of Governors, Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. He has also served as a member, Board of Governors of Medical Council of India and representative of President of India in the Board of Governors of Indira Gandhi National Open University. The Government of India, state governments, trade bodies, and global policy think tanks invite him regularly for discussions on healthcare policies. He was part of an international advisory group, a strategic advisory platform invited by Japan Center for International Exchange to address the global health agenda under Japan's G20 leadership during 2019-2020. A strong advocate of technology for efficient healthcare delivery, Dr. Shetty takes deep interest in creating and developing software products and applications to achieve time and cost efficiency while minimizing clinical errors in healthcare delivery. Dr. Shetty is a recipient of several prestigious awards, including the Padma Bhushan, Padma Shri, the Economist Innovation Award, Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year, Financial Times Accelerator Mittal Boldness in Business Award, Nickel Asia Prize for Economic and Business Innovation. He has also been awarded honorary doctorate from University of Minnesota, University of Mysore and IIT Madras.
Ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 has changed this world forever. Today, I'm sitting in our health city. We have 4 hospitals in one campus. There are close to 400 COVID-19 patients in our campus in a separate building. Over 100 of them are in the critical care unit. Nearly 300 of our doctors, nurses, technicians are already infected with COVID. I wish and pray to God that the number of COVID patients will come down. However, if it continues like this for some more time, we may not have doctors, nurses, and technicians to take care of the patients. We are optimistic. Number is coming down. especially in city of Bangalore and in Delhi and few places where we have hospitals, we have seen numbers coming down. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Now, let me talk to you for the next few minutes about exciting things, what can be done to transform the global healthcare. I would like to ask you a question. If you are the Health Minister of India and you are given every right to change anything what you want, what is it you will do to transform the healthcare of India and of course global healthcare? But you are allowed to do only one thing. What is that one thing? That one thing is removing the pen and paper from the hands of doctors, nurses and medical technicians and give them a digital tool which is smart. If we can do that successfully, believe me, healthcare will become safer for the patients. It will become affordable for the patients, and it will also become accessible to the patients. All we need to do is to come up with a smart digital tool. Just replacing the paper and a pen with a dumb digital tool is not going to make any difference. But a smart digital tool will make a difference. I strongly believe that a smart software can make smarter diagnosis than doctors within the next 3 to 5 years. And I am convinced within 7 to 10 years' time, it will become legally mandatory for every doctor to get the second opinion from the software before starting the treatment. It is going to happen. Why I am so confident that smart software can make smarter diagnosis than doctors. Now let's look at diagnosis. When a doctor like me makes a diagnosis, how many diseases are prevalent in medical practice? I'm not talking about esoteric diseases which are diagnosed only by the machines. I'm talking about in my clinical practice. Generally, there are not more than 2,500 diseases what we commonly encounter. This is not infinite. This data is finite. And how do we diagnose? We diagnose it by listening to the patient's complaints. This is called, in medical terms, it is called symptoms. There are, irrespective of how fussy your patient is, he or she cannot complain to you more than 650 complaints or symptoms. Then, as a doctor, I examine the patient and we elicit findings like, okay, the patient is jaundiced or is anemic or there is a swelling. These are called signs. Generally, we elicit about 510 signs. Then we send the blood tests, urine tests, sputum tests, all kinds of tests. Generally, there are about 2,500 tests. We get the data of about 2,500 lab reports. And then we look at the images, X-ray, ultrasound, CTs, MRI. Generally about 450, 500 varieties of images. To diagnose the patient's problem, all we have to do is to put the signs, symptoms, lab tests and images together, analyze it and come up with the diagnosis. Believe me, the software in your mobile phone can do that for you. It's a matter of time. I keep talking about hospitals not safe for the patients. Everyone thinks if you're unwell, hospitals are the safest places for the patients. But that is not true. Let's look at American hospitals. American hospitals are perhaps the safest hospitals on the planet. If 200 patients get admitted to an American hospital, spend just one night, 1 in 200 dies due to medical error. Getting admitted to an American hospital is 10 times riskier than skydiving. Why hospitals are not safe? It's because doctors and nurses do not follow the protocol sometimes. Why? Because protocol is written down, it's all available in a nicely bound files, but that's all in a cupboard. If this protocol-based software is the only matrix on which healthcare is delivered, believe me, we can virtually eliminate medical errors. According to British Medical Journal, medical error is the third leading cause of death in United States of America. Next question is, if digital tool is that important to deliver healthcare, why this is not available to everyone? You will be surprised and shocked to hear that nearly over 80% to 85% of the hospitals in this world do not have electronic medical records. Most hospitals do not even have hospital management system. If they have a hospital management system, they do not have an electronic medical record. Some hospitals may have an electronic medical record. They may even have a hospital management system, but they don't talk to each other. They are supplied by different vendors. This is the problem. And the biggest problem is some of the very good so-called most modern electronic medical records used by hospitals in US are worth millions and millions or billions. Yes, they are worth billions of dollars. Now one would think that an electronic medical record, which is worth millions and billions, will dazzle the doctors. Doctors are so happy to use it, they should celebrate. But that is not the reality. Unfortunately, electronic medical records are one of the common reasons for doctors' burnout in the United States. It is so badly designed and so difficult to use, doctors hate them. If they spend 1 hour with the patient in examining, they have to spend another 2 hours in entering the patient's data. There is something dramatically wrong somewhere. If EMRs worth millions and billions are not the ones which doctors enjoy using, now let's ask a question. What do the doctors want? How do they want the electronic medical record to be built and designed? There are a few fundamental principles. First fundamental principle is, when you design electronic medical records for the doctors, that shouldn't have a keyboard. Because doctors are not designed by God to type. So the electronic medical record should work only by touch. The second requirement is, if you are going to give an electronic medical record with the instruction manual, with a request to the doctor that he has to spend 76 hours of training how to use the electronic medical record, like what happens with $1 million worth electronic medical records from US. Believe me, no doctor is going to use it. First thing they will do is to throw your instruction manual out of the window, and he will never use your electronic medical record. Electronic medical record for the doctor should be intuitive. Like how we do many things in our mobile phone. Most of the mobile phones, smartphones, do not come with the instruction manual. Just by intuition, we know how to use it. That is the way EMR has to be designed. The next important quality of a EMR is it must be built on a mobile platform, and doctors can view it in their own mobile phone. Why mobile phone? It's because you want the best care for your patient. Doctor's attention should be drawn to the patient regularly. Doctors across the world look at the desktop 5 to 10 times in a day, but they look at their mobile phone screen 200 times in a day, at least. So if you design your electronic medical record so that the doctor can see the patient records, wherever he is, many times in a day, patient will get the best care. And one of the most important requirement of us with the digital medical record is that it should be affordable. It should be affordable by every hospital on the planet. With that in mind, we have toiled for more than 10 years in developing an electronic medical record which is smart, which is mobile, which is affordable, which is intuitive. So we came up with the concept of Atma, which is the hospital management system, the Adi, which is like an electronic medical record, then Meda, which is an analytic tool. And our aim is to make sure that these modern electronic medical records, hospital management system, will be available to any hospital on the planet, especially developing countries, at a price what they can afford. Now, what is a price what a hospital can afford? We believe that no hospital can afford to buy the EMR. It is too expensive. But they can all use it on a pay-per-use model. They pay a fixed amount per patient per day. Now, what is that amount what they can afford? We believe that if we can charge the hospital the price of one disposable plastic syringe per patient per day, this is the amount of money hospitals can afford to pay. Because we know that when the finance team of the hospital do the costing of a procedure, they do not add the price of a disposable plastic syringe because it is too small to be added. If we can keep it at that price and constantly keep upgrading it, updating it, we believe that within the next few years, we will be able to take away the pen and paper from the hands of doctors, nurses, and medical technicians. And this is our mission, and we hope to achieve it within the next 3 to 5 years. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I am extremely grateful to you. Have a wonderful day.
I'd like to introduce our closing comment speaker, Dr. Father Abraham VM, Vice Chancellor, Christ Deemed to be University. Dr. Father Abraham VM has a master's degree in mathematics and MS in computer science from Iona College, New York. He obtained his doctorate from Bangalore University, India. He has been working with Christ University, Bangalore, and since 1989 in various capacities, and has been serving as its Pro Vice Chancellor from 2008 to 2018. Currently serving as Vice Chancellor of the Christ Deemed to be University. He has served as a member of various academic bodies like Scientific and Technical Community and Editorial Review Board on Natural and Applied Sciences, World Academy of Sciences, Executive Committee member, Conference of Catholic Colleges of Karnataka, etc. Dr. Father Abraham VM is a member of a religious congregation of Catholic priests called the Carmelites of Mary Immaculate.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am very happy to be part of the Let Us Dream Triennial International Virtual Conference 2020. I understand today, the second day of the conference, the discussions and deliberations were on the topic mindfulness for health, physical and mental well-being. I congratulate the organizers for identifying this significant topic to the floor for discussion. As an administrator, I have come across many instances of fainting spells and hysterical outbursts from students and faculty on campus. At Christ University, we have support systems with the counselors and clinics to tackle such instances. Lately, I have seen a rise in the number of cases of clinical depression. This is something of concern, especially now in this time of the pandemic. COVID-19 is spreading across the world, and with it, we also see the spread of worry, anxiety, and instability. As the mind wanders and gets trapped into patterns of negative thinking during times of crisis, there are feelings of fear and helplessness. Fear narrows our field of vision, and it becomes harder to see the bigger picture and the positive, creative possibilities in front of us. As perspective shrinks, our tendency to connect with others shrinks too. As I observe the number of COVID-19 cases spiking in Bangalore, India, I am reminded of a parable of the Buddha. Like Christ, Buddha also used parables to teach his disciples, and one day asked them, if a person is struck by an arrow, is it painful? If the person is struck by a second arrow, is it even more painful? He then went on to explain, in life, we cannot always control the first arrow. However, the second arrow is our reaction to the first. And with the second arrow comes the possibility of choice. Our first arrow is the coronavirus and the restrictions we are experiencing these days. We are affected by the travel restrictions, supply shortages, and physical distancing. The anxiety about getting the virus ourselves, worry that our beloved ones will get it, worries about financial instability, and the bleak stories the news and social media is to a large extent our own making. This is our second arrow. It is important to remember that our second arrows, which are our emotional and psychological response to the crisis, are although natural and human, bring us only misery by narrowing and cluttering our mind and keeping us from seeing clearly the best course of action. The way to overcome this natural tendency is to build our mental resilience through mindfulness. Mental resilience, especially in challenging times like the present, means managing our minds in a way that increases our ability to face the first arrow and to break the second one before it strikes. The present climate of fear can create stigmas and judgments about who is to blame and who is to be avoided, making us forget our shared vulnerability and interdependence. I believe that meaningful connection can occur between us and our neighbor when social distancing decreases and physical distancing is maintained. This mindset happens with compassion. Our compassion is our intention to be of benefit to others, and it starts in the mind. we are being mindful of how we can help another person to have a better day. The mind then expands, the eyes see what is really in front of us, and we see possibilities for ourselves and others that are rich with hope and opportunity. I hope today we concluded that our dream of universal well-being is indeed achievable by building mental resilience through mindfulness. Thank you.
We are nearing the end of today's program. However, before we close out the day, allow me to introduce our final delightful and captivating video. It features an ensemble of entertaining and talented musicians performing together from different locations around the world. This inspiration ensemble was coordinated by the Dreams Band. The Dreams Band, an integral component of the Let Us Dream International movement, was established for the purpose of empowering children and youth in various communities in different parts of the world, with the help and support of their respective local community musicians. Credit goes to the Dreams Band for facilitating the coordination of an incredible international community of musicians and singers who voluntarily participated in the creation of this video. While this is an international group with likely different cultural backgrounds, they all subscribe to a belief in the power of music to transform, inspire, and help heal the world, particularly during these challenging times. To that end, they have prepared this musical collaboration expressly for you. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the music.
We sing for the youth songs of dice to live.